What if true peace and happiness were already within your control? It's a question that might sound too good to be true, especially in a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable. But what if the key to unlocking that inner calm has been within our reach for centuries? Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most renowned Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. These words, written nearly 2,000 years ago, still resonate deeply today. They remind us that while we can't control everything that happens to us, we can always control how we respond. This is the essence of Stoicism, a philosophy that teaches us to focus on what's within our control, accept what isn't, and cultivate resilience in the face of life's challenges. In this video, we'll explore how adopting a Stoic mindset can bring you not just peace, but a deeper, more enduring sense of happiness. Whether you're navigating personal struggles, professional setbacks, or simply seeking clarity in an overwhelming world, the principles of Stoicism offer timeless wisdom that can transform the way you live. So let's dive in and discover how you can harness this ancient philosophy to create a life of calm, purpose, and fulfillment. At the heart of Stoicism lies a simple yet profound idea, the dichotomy of control. This principle teaches us to clearly distinguish between what we can and cannot control in life. Think about it. How often do we waste energy worrying about things that are entirely outside our influence? The weather, other people's opinions, or even the traffic on our morning commute, these are all examples of external events we can't change. But what we can control is how we respond to them. As Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most influential teachers, put it, "Some things are within our power while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, and aversion. In a word, whatever is of our own doing." This distinction is more than just a philosophical concept. It's a practical tool for daily life. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, running late for an important meeting. You can't control the cars ahead of you or the timing of the traffic lights, but you can control your reaction. Instead of letting frustration take over, you might choose to use that time to listen to a podcast, reflect on your day, or simply take a few deep breaths. By shifting your focus to what's within your power, you transform a stressful situation into an opportunity for calm and clarity. The same principle applies to workplace stress. You can't control your boss's decisions or the demands of your job, but you can control how you approach your tasks, manage your time, and maintain your composure under pressure. This mindset doesn't just reduce stress, it empowers you to navigate challenges with resilience and purpose. So, here's a question to consider. What have you been trying to control that's actually beyond your power? Maybe it's a relationship you're trying to fix, a goal that feels out of reach, or even the opinions of others. Recognizing what's outside your control isn't about giving up. It's about freeing yourself from unnecessary struggle and redirecting your energy toward what truly matters. This shift in perspective is the first step toward cultivating a Stoic mindset, one that brings both peace and a deeper sense of fulfillment. What happens when we stop resisting what we can't change? It's a question that strikes at the core of Stoic philosophy. The truth is, much of our suffering comes not from the events themselves, but from our refusal to accept them as they are. Seneca, one of Stoicism's greatest thinkers, put it this way: "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." In other words, our resistance to what's happening, our constant wish for things to be different, creates far more pain than the situation itself. Take Seneca's own life as an example. At the height of his influence as a philosopher and advisor to Emperor Nero, he was suddenly exiled to the island of Corsica. Imagine the shock and despair of being torn from your life's work, your home, and your community. Yet instead of resisting his fate, Seneca chose to accept it. He didn't waste energy railing against the injustice or longing for what he'd lost. Instead, he used his time in exile to reflect, write, and deepen his understanding of Stoic principles. His writings from that period, filled with wisdom on resilience and acceptance, continue to inspire us today. This practice of acceptance isn't about passivity or resignation. It's about recognizing reality for what it is and choosing to respond with clarity and purpose. Think about a recent situation in your own life where things didn't go as planned. Maybe it was a missed opportunity, a disagreement with a loved one, or an unexpected setback at work. How much of your energy went into wishing it had turned out differently? Now, imagine how it might have felt to simply accept the situation as it was without resistance. That shift in perspective can be incredibly freeing. Acceptance doesn't mean you stop caring or striving for better outcomes. It means you stop fighting against what's already happened. It's about letting go of the struggle and focusing on what you can do moving forward. This is where true resilience begins. When you stop resisting the uncontrollable, you create space for peace, creativity, and growth. So here's a challenge for you. The next time you face a situation you can't change, pause for a moment. Instead of reacting with frustration or disappointment, try asking yourself, what would acceptance look like here? You might be surprised by the calm and clarity that follows. This is the power of Stoic acceptance, a practice that doesn't just bring peace, but also opens the door to a more meaningful and fulfilling life. Resilience isn't about avoiding hardship, it's about thriving through it. This is a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, which sees challenges not as obstacles to be feared, but as opportunities to grow stronger and wiser. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the very things that seem to block our path can become the tools we use to move forward. It's a mindset that transforms adversity into fuel for personal growth. Think about a time when you faced a significant setback. Maybe it was a job loss, a failed project, or a personal disappointment. In the moment, it likely felt overwhelming, even insurmountable. But looking back, you might realize that it taught you something valuable about yourself, about life, or about how to handle difficulty. That's the essence of resilience, not just enduring hardship, but emerging from it with greater strength and understanding. Stoicism teaches us to approach challenges with this perspective. Instead of seeing them as threats, we can view them as tests, opportunities to practice patience, courage, and adaptability. Consider the story of Epictetus, who was born into slavery and faced unimaginable hardships. Yet he didn't let his circumstances define him. Instead, he used his struggles as a foundation for his teachings, showing that even in the face of adversity, we have the power to choose how we respond. His life is a testament to the idea that resilience isn't about what happens to us, but how we rise above it. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one challenge you faced that, in hindsight, made you stronger? Maybe it was a difficult conversation that taught you the value of honesty, or a failure that pushed you to work harder and smarter. By reframing our struggles as opportunities for growth, we not only build resilience but also cultivate a deeper sense of purpose and confidence. This Stoic approach to resilience isn't just about surviving life's storms, it's about learning to dance in the rain. It's about recognizing that every challenge, no matter how daunting, carries the potential to shape us into better, more capable versions of ourselves. And that's a mindset that doesn't just bring peace, it brings empowerment. What would your life look like if you weren't so attached to outcomes? It's a question that might feel uncomfortable at first, especially in a world that often measures success by results, grades, promotions, likes, or followers. But Stoicism invites us to shift our focus away from these external markers and instead concentrate on what truly matters, our internal virtues. As Epictetus wisely said, Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. This is the essence of detachment, not indifference, but a deliberate choice to prioritize what we can control, our actions, intentions, and character. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring about your goals or stop striving for excellence. It means you stop letting the outcome define your worth or dictate your happiness. Think about social media, for example. How often do we post something and then anxiously check for likes or comments, letting those numbers determine how we feel about ourselves? That's attachment to an external result, a fleeting, uncontrollable metric. But what if instead you focused on the act of creating itself? What if you posted because you genuinely wanted to share something meaningful, regardless of how it's received? That shift in focus from external validation to internal intention can be incredibly liberating. This principle applies to so many areas of life. Maybe you've worked tirelessly on a project at work, only to have it criticized or overlooked. It's natural to feel disappointed, but Stoicism reminds us that the value of your effort lies in the effort itself, not in the outcome. Did you give it your best? Did you act with integrity and diligence? If so, that's where your peace and pride should come from, not from the approval or recognition of others. So take a moment to reflect. What are you overly attached to in your own life? Is it a specific goal, a relationship, or even a particular image of how things should be? How does that attachment affect your sense of peace and happiness? The practice of detachment isn't about giving up on what you care about. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of expectations and finding contentment in the process, not just the result. When you detach from outcomes, you open yourself up to a deeper kind of fulfillment. You stop being a prisoner to circumstances and start becoming the author of your own peace. And that's where true freedom begins. The present moment is all we truly have. It's a simple truth, yet one that's easy to overlook in the rush of daily life. Stoicism places a profound emphasis on mindfulness, on being fully present in the here and now. Seneca, ever the voice of wisdom, once wrote, "Life is long if you know how to use it." But he wasn't talking about adding more years to your life. He was talking about adding more life to your years. He believed that time is our most precious resource, and yet we often squander it by dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. The Stoics understood that the only moment we can truly influence is the one we're living in right now. Consider something as simple as drinking a cup of coffee. How often do we do this on autopilot, barely noticing the warmth of the mug, the aroma of the beans, or the quiet stillness of the morning? Stoicism invites us to slow down and savor these small, everyday moments. It's not about grand gestures or life-altering events. It's about finding joy and meaning in the ordinary. When you're fully present, even the most mundane activities can become sources of peace and gratitude. But let's be honest, staying present isn't always easy. Our minds have a tendency to wander, pulled in 100 different directions by responsibilities, distractions, and anxieties. How often do you find yourself physically in one place but mentally somewhere else entirely? Maybe you're at dinner with friends, but your thoughts are stuck on a work deadline. Or you're out for a walk, but instead of noticing the beauty around you, you're replaying a conversation from earlier in the day. These moments of mental absence add up, and before we know it, we've missed out on the richness of our own lives. So here's a challenge for you. Take a moment today to pause and truly engage with the present. It could be something as simple as feeling the sun on your skin, listening to the sound of rain, or even just taking a few deep breaths. Notice the details, the textures, the colors, the sensations. When you bring your full attention to the present, you'll find that it's not just a moment in time. It's an opportunity to connect with yourself and the world around you. Living in the present moment isn't about ignoring the past or neglecting the future. It's about recognizing that the past is gone and the future is uncertain. All we have is now. And when you embrace that truth, you'll discover a deeper sense of peace and fulfillment. After all, the present isn't just a fleeting instant. It's the foundation of a life well lived. What does it mean to live a virtuous life? For the Stoics, this wasn't just a philosophical question. It was the very foundation of a meaningful and happy existence. Virtue, in their view, wasn't about following a set of rigid rules or seeking external rewards. Instead, it was about living in harmony with nature, cultivating qualities like wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. Marcus Aurelius put it beautifully when he wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." In other words, virtue isn't something you debate, it's something you embody through your actions, choices, and character. Take the example of Cato the Younger, a Roman statesman and Stoic philosopher. Cato was known for his unwavering commitment to integrity, even when it cost him dearly. During a time of political corruption and moral decay, he stood firm in his principles, refusing to compromise his values for personal gain or popularity. His life wasn't easy. He faced exile, betrayal, and ultimately death, but he remained steadfast in his pursuit of virtue. To Cato, living a virtuous life wasn't about achieving fame or fortune. It was about staying true to himself and his ideals, no matter the consequences. His story reminds us that virtue isn't always convenient, but it's always worth pursuing. So, what does virtue look like in our modern lives? It might mean choosing honesty over convenience, standing up for what's right even when it's unpopular, or showing kindness to someone who doesn't deserve it. It's about aligning your actions with your deepest values, even when no one is watching. The Stoics believed that true happiness comes from this alignment, from knowing that you've lived with integrity and purpose. But here's the thing, virtue isn't a destination, it's a journey. It's not about being perfect or never making mistakes. It's about striving to be better day by day, moment by moment. Think about your own life for a moment. What does virtue mean to you? Is it about being fair in your relationships, courageous in the face of fear, or disciplined in your habits? How do your actions reflect the values you hold most dear? The beauty of Stoic virtue is that it's accessible to everyone. You don't need wealth, status, or special talents to live virtuously. All you need is the willingness to look inward, to examine your choices, and to act with intention. When you do that, you'll find that happiness isn't something you chase, it's something you create, one virtuous decision at a time. And that's a life worth living. Stoicism teaches us to respond, not react. This subtle but powerful distinction lies at the heart of emotional mastery. When we react, we're driven by impulse, often letting anger, fear, or frustration take the wheel. But when we respond, we pause, reflect, and choose how to act, guided by reason rather than emotion. Seneca, who wrote extensively on the dangers of unchecked anger, once said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." In other words, giving yourself even a moment to think before acting can prevent a lifetime of regret. Imagine you're in the middle of a heated argument with a colleague or loved one. Voices are raised, emotions are running high, and it feels like the situation is spiraling out of control. In that moment, it's easy to lash out, to say something hurtful that you can't take back. But what if instead you took a deep breath and stepped back even for a few seconds? That pause creates space for reason to enter the picture. It allows you to ask yourself, what's really at stake here? Is this reaction helping or hurting the situation? By shifting your focus from emotion to reason, you regain control and can respond in a way that aligns with your values rather than your impulses. This practice isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist. Stoicism recognizes that emotions are a natural part of being human. The goal isn't to eliminate them, but to manage them wisely. Think about fear, for example. It's a primal emotion hardwired into us for survival. But when fear takes over, it can paralyze us, keeping us from taking risks or pursuing opportunities. Reason, on the other hand, helps us assess the situation objectively. It asks, is this fear justified? What's the worst that could happen, and how can I prepare for it? By engaging your rational mind, you transform fear from a roadblock into a tool for thoughtful action. So, here's a question to reflect on. When was the last time you let your emotions dictate your actions? Maybe it was a moment of frustration, impatience, or even excitement that led to a decision you later questioned. How might things have turned out differently if you'd taken a moment to let reason guide you? This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Each time you choose to respond rather than react, you strengthen your ability to navigate life's challenges with clarity and composure. Managing emotions through reason isn't just a Stoic practice, it's a life skill. It helps us build healthier relationships, make better decisions, and maintain inner peace even in turbulent times. And the best part, it's a skill you can start practicing today. The next time you feel your emotions rising, remember Seneca's advice: delay, reflect, and respond. That small shift can make all the difference. What if gratitude could transform your perspective? It's a question that might seem simple, but its implications are profound. Stoicism teaches us that true contentment doesn't come from acquiring more. It comes from appreciating what we already have. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who lived in a time of great uncertainty, once said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." This idea of focusing on abundance rather than lack is a cornerstone of Stoic practice, and it's as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. Think about the small, everyday joys we often overlook. The warmth of sunlight on your face, the sound of laughter, or even the comfort of a hot meal. These are gifts that we tend to take for granted. Yet, when we pause to truly notice them, they can shift our entire outlook. Imagine you're having a tough day at work. Deadlines are looming, emails are piling up, and stress is mounting. But then, you step outside for a moment and feel the breeze on your skin. That simple act of noticing, of being present, can remind you that even in the midst of chaos, there are moments of beauty and peace. This practice of gratitude isn't about ignoring life's challenges or pretending everything is perfect. It's about balancing our perspective. When we focus on what we lack, it's easy to feel discontented, no matter how much we have. But when we shift our attention to what we do have, we create space for joy and fulfillment. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, the shadows don't seem so overwhelming. So here's a challenge for you. Take a moment today to list 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be grand or life-changing. Maybe it's the smell of fresh coffee in the morning, a kind word from a friend, or even the fact that you made it through a difficult week. By consciously acknowledging these things, you're not just practicing gratitude, you're training your mind to see the good, even in the midst of the ordinary. Gratitude, in the Stoic sense, isn't just a fleeting feeling, it's a habit, a way of seeing the world. And when you cultivate that habit, you'll find that it doesn't just change your perspective, it changes your life. It reminds you that even in the face of adversity, there's always something to appreciate. And that's a mindset that brings not just peace, but a deep and lasting sense of happiness. Everything in life is temporary, even our struggles. This might sound like a simple observation, but it's one of the most profound truths Stoicism offers. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "All things fade and quickly turn to myth." He wasn't just talking about the grandeur of empires or the beauty of nature. He was reminding us that even our most difficult moments are fleeting. The pain you feel today, the challenges you're facing, they won't last forever. and that realization can be incredibly liberating. The Stoics saw impermanence not as something to fear, but as a natural part of life. Think about the great empires of history, Rome, Persia, or even the vast Mongol Empire. At their peak, they seemed invincible, their power and influence stretching across continents. Yet, over time, they all faded, their glory reduced to stories in history books. This isn't a cause for despair. It's a reminder that nothing lasts forever. Not our successes, not our failures, and certainly not our struggles. This perspective can bring a surprising sense of peace. When you're in the middle of a tough situation, it's easy to feel like it will never end. But Stoicism teaches us to step back and see the bigger picture. That argument with a loved one, the stress of a demanding job, or even the grief of a loss, these are all temporary. They will pass just as everything else does. And knowing that can help you approach challenges with a calmer, more resilient mindset. Consider this. How often do you find yourself clinging to moments of happiness, wishing they could last forever? Or on the flip side, how often do you feel trapped by difficulties, convinced they'll never change? The truth is, both extremes are illusions. Life is a constant flow of change, and embracing that impermanence can help you find balance. It's not about dismissing your struggles or downplaying your joys. It's about recognizing that both are part of a larger, ever-shifting tapestry. So here's a question to reflect on. How does the idea of impermanence shape your perspective? When you look back on past challenges, do you see how they've shaped you, even as they've faded? And when you think about the future, does knowing that nothing lasts forever help you approach it with less fear and more openness? Embracing impermanence isn't about giving up on life. It's about living more fully. It's about appreciating the present, knowing it won't last, and finding peace in the ebb and flow of existence. When you stop resisting the temporary nature of things, you open yourself up to a deeper, more enduring kind of happiness, one that isn't tied to circumstances, but to the way you choose to see them. What could you achieve with greater self-discipline? It's a question that might make you pause, especially in a world filled with distractions and instant gratification. Stoicism teaches us that self-discipline isn't just about willpower, it's about aligning our actions with our values and creating a life of purpose and peace. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who emphasized the importance of mastering our desires, once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." In other words, true freedom and true peace comes from the ability to control our impulses and stay focused on what truly matters. Think about your daily routine for a moment. How often do you find yourself reaching for your phone first thing in the morning, scrolling through social media instead of starting your day with intention? Or maybe you've set a goal to exercise regularly, but the temptation to hit snooze and stay in bed wins out more often than not. These small choices might seem insignificant, but they add up. Each time we give in to distraction or procrastination, we're letting external forces dictate our actions rather than exercising the self-discipline that leads to inner calm. Stoicism sees self-discipline as a form of self-respect. It's about honoring the commitments you make to yourself, whether that's sticking to a morning routine, completing a project, or simply choosing to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. When you practice self-discipline, you're not just building habits, you're building character, and that character becomes the foundation for a life of peace and fulfillment. Here's a practical example. Imagine you've decided to wake up an hour earlier each day to meditate or journal. At first, it's challenging. Your bed feels impossibly comfortable, and the temptation to sleep in is strong. But as you stick to your commitment, something shifts. You start to notice the quiet stillness of the morning, the clarity that comes from starting your day with intention. Over time, this small act of discipline becomes a source of strength and calm. a reminder that you have the power to shape your life one choice at a time. So take a moment to reflect, where in your life could a little more self-discipline make a difference? Maybe it's in managing your time more effectively, resisting the urge to check your phone constantly, or staying committed to a personal goal. Whatever it is, remember that self-discipline isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Each time you choose to act with intention, you're not just moving closer to your goals, you're cultivating the inner peace that comes from knowing you're in control of your own life. And that's a reward worth striving for. What if imagining the worst could prepare you for the best? It might sound counterintuitive, but this is the essence of a powerful Stoic practice called negative visualization. The idea is simple. By intentionally envisioning potential challenges or losses, we can better prepare ourselves to face them with resilience and clarity. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most eloquent voices, put it this way: "What is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect, and unexpectedness adds to the weight of a disaster." This is a reason for ensuring that nothing ever takes us by surprise. In other words, when we mentally rehearse adversity, we strip it of its power to shock or overwhelm us. Let's take a practical example. Imagine you've been working at the same company for years and suddenly rumors of layoffs start circulating. It's easy to spiral into anxiety, imagining the worst-case scenario, losing your job, struggling to pay bills, or feeling like you failed. But what if, instead of avoiding those thoughts, you leaned into them? What if you asked yourself, what would I do if I lost my job tomorrow? By visualizing this possibility, you might start brainstorming solutions, updating your resume, networking, or even exploring new career paths. Suddenly, the fear of the unknown loses its grip and you feel more prepared, more in control. This practice isn't about dwelling on negativity or inviting pessimism into your life. It's about building mental resilience. When you confront your fears head-on, you realize that even the worst-case scenarios are manageable. You start to see that you have the strength and resourcefulness to handle whatever comes your way. And when you do face challenges, they feel less like catastrophes and more like opportunities to grow. So, here's a question to consider. What's one situation in your life that feels uncertain or daunting? Maybe it's a health concern, a financial worry, or even a relationship that feels fragile. How might negative visualization help you prepare for it? By imagining the worst, you're not inviting it to happen. You're simply equipping yourself to face it with courage and clarity. And that's where true peace begins. What could you let go of to find greater peace? It's a question that might feel uncomfortable at first, especially in a world that often equates success with accumulation, more possessions, more commitments, more distractions. But Stoicism offers a different perspective, one that values simplicity as a path to freedom and clarity. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, once wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." These words remind us that true contentment doesn't come from external things, it comes from cultivating an inner sense of peace and purpose. Think about your own life for a moment. How much of what you own or do is truly essential? How much of it adds value, and how much of it simply adds noise? The Stoics believed that by stripping away the unnecessary, we create space for what truly matters. This isn't just about physical possessions, it's about simplifying our thoughts, our schedules, and even our relationships. When we let go of what doesn't serve us, we make room for clarity, focus, and joy. Take the modern practice of decluttering, for example. Many people find that clearing out their living spaces, donating old clothes, organizing their homes, or even downsizing brings a surprising sense of relief. It's not just about having fewer things, it's about creating an environment that reflects your priorities and values. When you remove the clutter, you're left with what's truly important. And that's where peace begins, but simplicity goes beyond physical spaces. it's also about simplifying your mental and emotional load. How often do you say yes to commitments out of obligation, only to feel drained and overwhelmed? Or how much time do you spend scrolling through social media, absorbing information that doesn't enrich your life? These are forms of clutter, two distractions that pull you away from what truly matters. The Stoic practice of simplicity invites you to pause and ask, what can I let go of to create more space for what I value? So here's a challenge for you. Take a moment to reflect on one area of your life that feels overly complicated or cluttered. Maybe it's your schedule, your digital habits, or even a relationship that no longer brings you joy. What would it feel like to simplify that area? What could you release to make room for more peace, more focus, or more connection? Simplicity isn't about deprivation, it's about liberation. It's about choosing to live with intention, letting go of what weighs you down, and embracing what truly matters. And when you do, you'll find that the freedom of simplicity isn't just a Stoic ideal, it's a practical, powerful way to create a life of calm and fulfillment. Your perspective shapes your reality. It's a simple truth, but one that holds immense power. Stoicism teaches us that the way we see the world and the events that unfold within it determines how we experience life. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who endured slavery and exile, put it this way: men are disturbed not by things but by the views which they take of them. In other words, it's not the events themselves that cause us pain or joy, it's the meaning we assign to them, and that's where the power of perspective comes in. Think about a time when you faced a setback. Maybe you didn't get the promotion you were hoping for, or a project you worked hard on didn't go as planned. In the moment, it's easy to see that as a failure, something to be disappointed or even ashamed about. But what if you reframed it? What if, instead of seeing it as a dead end, you saw it as a detour, a chance to learn, grow, and try a different approach? That shift in perspective doesn't just change how you feel about the situation, it changes how you move forward. Suddenly, what felt like a loss becomes an opportunity for growth. This is the essence of Stoic reframing. It's about looking at challenges not as obstacles but as stepping stones. Take the example of Thomas Edison, who famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." His perspective on failure wasn't one of defeat, it was one of curiosity and determination. Each failure brought him closer to success because he chose to see it as part of the process, not the end of the road. That's the kind of mindset Stoicism encourages, one that turns setbacks into setups for something greater. So here's a question to reflect on. What's one challenge you're facing right now that feels overwhelming or discouraging? How might your perspective change if you saw it as an opportunity rather than an obstacle? Maybe it's a difficult conversation you've been avoiding, a goal that feels out of reach, or even a mistake you're struggling to move past. What if, instead of focusing on what went wrong, you focused on what you can learn or how you can grow from it? Shifting your perspective isn't about denying reality or pretending everything is perfect. It's about choosing to see the possibilities within the challenges. It's about recognizing that while you can't always control what happens to you, you can control how you interpret it. And when you do, you'll find that your reality and your experience of it begins to change. That's the power of perspective, and it's a tool that can transform not just how you see the world, but how you live in it. What could you learn from reflecting on your day? It's a question that might seem simple, but its impact can be profound. For the Stoics, journaling wasn't just a habit, it was a tool for self-awareness, growth, and inner peace. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, kept a personal journal that later became one of the most influential works in Stoic philosophy, Meditations. In it he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." His journal wasn't just a record of his thoughts, it was a space for him to reflect, recalibrate, and reconnect with his values. And this practice is just as powerful today as it was in ancient Rome. Journaling in the Stoic tradition is about more than just writing down what happened during your day. It's about examining your actions, your reactions, and your thoughts. It's a way to step back and ask yourself, did I act with integrity today? Did I let my emotions control me, or did I respond with reason? What can I learn from today's challenges? This kind of reflection helps you see patterns in your behavior, recognize areas for growth, and celebrate your progress. It's like holding up a mirror to your mind, allowing you to see yourself more clearly. Here's a practical example. Imagine you had a difficult conversation with a colleague. Instead of replaying the argument in your head or stewing over what you wish you'd said, you sit down with your journal. You write about what happened, how you felt, and how you responded. Then you ask yourself, was my reaction aligned with my values? Could I have handled that differently? What can I take away from this experience? By putting your thoughts on paper, you create distance from the emotions of the moment. You gain clarity and you give yourself the opportunity to grow. So here's a challenge for you. What would it look like to start a journaling practice of your own? It doesn't have to be elaborate or time-consuming. Even just 5 minutes at the end of the day can make a difference. You could write about what went well, what challenged you, and what you learned. Or you could focus on one question, like how did I practice virtue today? The key is consistency, not perfection. Over time, you'll start to notice patterns, insights, and shifts in your mindset. You'll see how far you've come, and you'll have a clearer sense of where you're headed. Journaling isn't just about self-improvement, it's about self-discovery. It's a way to slow down, reflect, and reconnect with what truly matters. And in a world that often feels fast-paced and overwhelming, that kind of pause can be a source of profound peace and clarity. So why not give it a try? You might be surprised by what you learn, not just about your day, but about yourself. Stoicism isn't just about the individual, it's about our connections with others. While the philosophy emphasizes self-mastery and inner strength, it also recognizes the profound importance of relationships and community. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most eloquent voices, once wrote, "Friendship always benefits, love sometimes injures." For the Stoics, friendship wasn't just a source of comfort or companionship. It was a vital part of living a virtuous and meaningful life. True friendship, in their view, was built on mutual respect, shared values, and a commitment to helping one another grow. It wasn't about superficial connections or fleeting pleasures. It was about cultivating bonds that uplifted both individuals and the community as a whole. Take the example of the Stoic philosophers themselves. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca didn't live in isolation. They were deeply connected to others, both personally and professionally. Marcus Aurelius, as emperor, relied on trusted advisors and friends to navigate the complexities of leadership. Epictetus, despite his humble beginnings as a slave, built a community of students who carried his teachings forward. And Seneca, through his letters and dialogues, maintained close relationships with friends and mentees, offering guidance and support even in the face of his own challenges. These bonds weren't just incidental, they were integral to their practice of Stoicism. They understood that while we can't control others, we can choose to surround ourselves with people who inspire us, challenge us, and help us stay true to our values. But what does this mean for us today? In a world that often prioritizes individualism and self-reliance, Stoicism reminds us that we're not meant to go through life alone. Think about your own relationships for a moment. Who are the people in your life who encourage you to be your best self, who challenges you to think differently or supports you when things get tough? These connections aren't just nice to have, they're essential to our well-being and growth. The Stoics believed that by nurturing meaningful relationships, we not only enrich our own lives but also contribute to the greater good. So, here's a question to reflect on. How can you strengthen the role of community in your own life? Maybe it's by reaching out to a friend you haven't spoken to in a while, joining a group that shares your interests, or simply being more present in the relationships you already have. The Stoic approach to community isn't about quantity, it's about quality. It's about creating spaces where you can give and receive support, share wisdom, and grow together. And when you do, you'll find that the bonds you build aren't just a source of happiness, they're a foundation for a life of purpose and peace. What would you do differently if you remembered your mortality every day? It's a question that might feel unsettling at first, but it's at the heart of a powerful Stoic practice called Memento Mori, Latin for remember you must die. Far from being morbid, this practice is about embracing the reality of our finite time to live with greater intention and purpose. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do and say and think. These words aren't meant to frighten us, they're meant to awaken us. By remembering that our time is limited, we're reminded to focus on what truly matters. Think about how often we get caught up in the trivial, the petty arguments, the endless to-do lists, the distractions that fill our days. But when we pause to reflect on our mortality, those things suddenly seem less important. What rises to the surface are the things that truly matter: our relationships, our values, and the legacy we want to leave behind. Imagine you're at the end of your life looking back. What would you regret not doing? What would you be proud of? These are the questions Memento Mori invites us to ask, not to dwell on death, but to live more fully in the present. Here's a modern example. Consider someone who spends years climbing the corporate ladder, only to realize they've neglected their family and personal passions along the way. When they reflect on their mortality, they might decide to reprioritize spending more time with loved ones, pursuing hobbies that bring them joy, or even making a career change that aligns with their deeper values. This isn't about abandoning ambition, it's about aligning it with what truly matters. So how might this practice change your own priorities? Take a moment to reflect. If you knew your time was limited, what would you stop putting off? Would you finally have that difficult conversation, take that trip you've been dreaming of, or simply spend more time with the people you love? Memento Mori isn't about living in fear of death, it's about living in appreciation of life. It's a reminder that every moment is a gift, and that the best way to honor that gift is to live with intention, gratitude, and purpose. By embracing this practice, you're not just preparing for the end of life, you're enriching the life you're living right now. And that's the true power of Memento Mori. It doesn't just change how you think about death, it changes how you choose to live. Stoicism teaches us when to act and when to let go, a delicate balance that lies at the heart of a peaceful and purposeful life. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who emphasized the importance of focusing on what's within our control, once said, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." This simple yet profound idea reminds us that while effort is essential, so is surrender. It's not about giving up or pushing endlessly. It's about knowing the difference between what deserves your energy and what requires your acceptance. Think about the balance between work and personal life. Many of us have experienced the tension of trying to excel in our careers while also nurturing our relationships and well-being. You might pour hours into a project, striving for perfection, only to realize you've neglected time with loved ones or your own health. Stoicism invites us to step back and ask, am I focusing my efforts where they truly matter? Sometimes the answer is to work harder, to push through a challenge with determination. Other times it's to let go, to accept that not everything can be controlled, and to prioritize what truly enriches your life. Here's a practical example. Imagine you're leading a team at work, and despite your best efforts, a project falls short of expectations. You could spend days agonizing over what went wrong, replaying every decision and trying to fix what's already done. Or you could accept the outcome, learn from it, and redirect your energy toward the next opportunity. The first approach might feel like action, but it's really resistance, a refusal to accept reality. The second approach, though it requires surrender, is where true progress begins. It's about recognizing that while you can't change the past, you can shape the future. So, where in your life might you need more balance? Is there an area where you're pushing too hard, trying to control what's beyond your reach? Or perhaps a situation where you're holding back, avoiding action out of fear or uncertainty? The Stoic approach isn't about choosing one extreme over the other. It's about finding the harmony between effort and acceptance. When you strike that balance, you'll find not just peace, but a deeper sense of purpose and fulfillment. This isn't just a philosophical idea, it's a practical tool for navigating life's complexities. Whether it's in your career, your relationships, or your personal growth, the ability to discern when to act and when to let go can transform how you experience the world. And that's the beauty of Stoicism. It doesn't just teach us how to think, it shows us how to live. What could you discover in moments of silence? It's a question that might feel counterintuitive in a world that's constantly buzzing with noise, notifications, conversations, and the endless hum of activity. Yet, Stoicism teaches us that stillness is not just a luxury, it's a necessity for clarity and peace. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher who often retreated to quiet spaces for reflection, once wrote, "The mind must be given relaxation. It will rise improved and sharper after a good break." These words remind us that silence isn't empty, it's full of potential. It's in those quiet moments that we can hear our own thoughts, reconnect with our values, and find the clarity we need to navigate life's challenges. Think about the last time you truly allowed yourself to be still, not just physically but mentally. No distractions, no multitasking, just you in the quiet. For many of us, that's a rare experience. We're so accustomed to filling every moment with activity that stillness can feel uncomfortable, even unnatural. But what if, instead of avoiding it, we embraced it? What if we saw stillness not as wasted time, but as an opportunity to recharge and reflect? Here's a practical way to start. Try taking a daily pause. It doesn't have to be long, just 5 minutes of sitting quietly, focusing on your breath, or simply observing your surroundings. You might notice the way sunlight filters through a window, the sound of birds outside, or even the rhythm of your own heartbeat. These small moments of stillness can become anchors in your day, helping you reset and refocus. Over time, you'll find that these pauses don't just bring calm, they bring insight. It's in the quiet that we often find answers to questions we didn't even know we were asking. So, here's a challenge for you. How could you incorporate stillness into your routine? Maybe it's starting your morning with a few minutes of quiet before the day begins, or taking a short walk without your phone. It could even be as simple as sitting in your car for a moment after arriving home, letting the day's stress settle before stepping inside. The key is to make it intentional, a deliberate choice to step away from the noise and into the quiet. Stillness, in the Stoic sense, isn't about doing nothing. It's about creating space for something deeper. It's about giving yourself permission to pause, to listen, and to reconnect with what truly matters. And when you do, you'll find that the silence isn't empty, it's full of possibility. It's a reminder that sometimes the most powerful moments are the ones where nothing seems to be happening at all. What if you could love everything that happens to you? It's a bold idea, one that might seem impossible at first glance. But this is the essence of Amor Fati, a Latin phrase that translates to love of fate. It's a core Stoic principle that encourages us not just to accept what happens in life, but to embrace it fully and wholeheartedly. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, captured this idea beautifully when he wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." In other words, no matter what life throws at us, we have the power to transform it into something meaningful, something that fuels our growth and resilience. The concept of Amor Fati goes beyond mere acceptance. It's about finding value in every experience, even the difficult ones. Think about it. When we resist what happens to us, we create unnecessary suffering. But when we choose to embrace it, we open ourselves up to learning, growth, and even gratitude. This doesn't mean we have to like every situation or pretend it's easy. It means we recognize that every event, good or bad, is part of our journey, and that journey is what shapes us. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, though not a Stoic himself, was deeply inspired by this idea. He saw Amor Fati as a way to affirm life in its entirety, to say yes to everything that happens, not just the pleasant parts. For Nietzsche, this wasn't about passive resignation. It was about active engagement with life, about finding meaning even in the face of hardship. He famously wrote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity." It's a powerful reminder that true freedom comes from embracing life as it is, not as we wish it to be. So, how might this principle apply to your own life? Think about a recent challenge or setback you faced. Maybe it was a missed opportunity, a difficult conversation, or even a failure that left you feeling discouraged. Now, imagine looking at that situation through the lens of Amor Fati. Instead of seeing it as a mistake or a loss, what if you saw it as an essential part of your story? What if you could find something valuable in it, a lesson, a strength, or even a new direction? This isn't about ignoring pain or pretending everything is perfect. It's about shifting your perspective, about choosing to see the bigger picture. When you practice Amor Fati, you're not just enduring life's challenges, you're embracing them as opportunities to grow, to learn, and to become more fully yourself. And that's where true peace and happiness begin. So here's a question to reflect on. What's one experience in your life that you've struggled to accept? How might your perspective change if you chose to love it, not in spite of what it taught you, but because of it? When you start to see life this way, you'll find that every moment, no matter how difficult, has the potential to become a source of strength and meaning. And that's the transformative power of Amor Fati. What could humility teach us about peace? At first glance, humility might seem like a quiet, unassuming virtue, something we associate with modesty or self-effacement. But in Stoicism, humility is far more than that. It's a powerful tool for cultivating inner tranquility and building stronger connections with others. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who emphasized the importance of self-awareness, once said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." In other words, humility begins with recognizing the limits of our knowledge and understanding. It's about acknowledging that we don't have all the answers, and that's okay. This openness to learning and growth is where true peace begins. Think about a time when you made a mistake at work. Maybe you overlooked a detail, missed a deadline, or gave advice that turned out to be wrong. It's tempting to deflect blame, make excuses, or even double down on your position to save face. But what if instead you chose humility? What if you admitted the error, took responsibility, and asked for feedback on how to improve? This might feel uncomfortable in the moment, but it's a practice that builds trust, respect, and ultimately peace. When we stop trying to prove ourselves and start embracing our imperfections, we free ourselves from the pressure of always needing to be right. And that's where humility shines. It's not about diminishing ourselves. It's about creating space for growth and connection. Humility also plays a crucial role in our relationships. Imagine you're in a disagreement with a loved one. It's easy to get caught up in defending your point of view, insisting that you're right and trying to win the argument. But what if instead you approached the situation with humility? What if you listened with an open mind, acknowledged their perspective, and admitted where you might have misunderstood or overreacted? This shift doesn't just diffuse tension, it deepens the bond between you. Humility reminds us that relationships aren't about being right, they're about understanding, compassion, and mutual respect. So here's a question to reflect on. Where in your life could a little more humility make a difference? Is it in your work, your relationships, or even your relationship with yourself? How might admitting your limitations or mistakes open the door to greater peace and connection? Humility isn't about weakness, it's about strength. It's the courage to be honest, the wisdom to learn, and the grace to grow. And when we embrace it, we find that it's not just a virtue, it's a path to a calmer, more fulfilling life. How could reflecting on your day bring you closer to peace? It's a question that might seem simple, but its impact can be profound. For the Stoics, daily reflection wasn't just a habit, it was a cornerstone of living a meaningful and tranquil life. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most eloquent voices, once wrote, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, aware of this habit that's now mine, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by." This practice of self-examination wasn't about dwelling on mistakes or regrets. It was about learning, growing, and aligning actions with values. Imagine ending your day not by scrolling through your phone or rushing to the next task, but by taking a few quiet moments to reflect. What went well? What could have been handled differently? Did your actions align with your principles? These questions aren't meant to judge or criticize, they're tools for clarity and growth. For example, think about a day when you felt particularly stressed or overwhelmed. By reflecting on it, you might realize that much of your frustration came from trying to control things outside your power, like a colleague's behavior or an unexpected delay. That awareness alone can help you approach similar situations with more calm and focus in the future. Here's a practical way to start. Before bed, take 5 minutes to jot down 3 things you're proud of and 1 area where you'd like to improve. Maybe you handled a difficult conversation with patience, or perhaps you let a small annoyance derail your mood. The key is to approach this reflection with curiosity, not judgment. Over time, you'll start to notice patterns, habits that serve you well and others that might need adjusting. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Each day becomes an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to move closer to the person you aspire to be. So, what would it look like to bring this practice into your own life? Could you carve out a few minutes each evening to reflect on your day, to celebrate your wins and learn from your challenges? The beauty of daily reflection is that it doesn't require any special tools or expertise, just a willingness to pause, to look inward, and to grow. And when you do, you'll find that this simple habit doesn't just bring peace, it brings purpose. It's a reminder that every day is a chance to live with intention, to align your actions with your values, and to create a life that feels truly your own. As we come to the end of this exploration of Stoicism, let's take a moment to reflect on the timeless principles we've discussed. At its core, Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, our thoughts, actions, and responses, while letting go of what lies beyond our influence. This simple yet profound idea, the dichotomy of control, is the foundation of a peaceful and purposeful life. It reminds us that while we can't always change our circumstances, we can always choose how we engage with them. We've also explored the power of acceptance, not as resignation, but as a way to stop resisting reality and start embracing it. By letting go of our attachment to how things should be, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering and open the door to resilience. And resilience, as we've seen, isn't just about enduring hardship. It's about thriving through it, using challenges as opportunities to grow stronger and wiser. Finally, we've touched on the importance of presence, of living fully in the moment, rather than being consumed by regrets about the past or anxieties about the future. When we ground ourselves in the here and now, we find clarity, gratitude, and a deeper connection to life itself. These principles, control, acceptance, resilience, and presence, aren't just philosophical ideas. They're practical tools for creating a life of peace and happiness. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's greatest voices, once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." These words remind us that Stoicism isn't about theory or debate, it's about action. It's about taking these principles and applying them to our daily lives, one choice at a time. So, as you move forward, I encourage you to reflect on how you can bring Stoic wisdom into your own life. What's one area where you could focus more on what's within your control? Where might acceptance or resilience help you navigate a challenge? And how can you cultivate presence to find more joy in the everyday? If this journey into Stoicism has resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share in the comments how you plan to apply these principles, or let me know which Stoic idea has inspired you the most. And if you're eager to dive deeper into this philosophy, consider subscribing for more insights and practical tips on living a Stoic life. Together, let's continue exploring how ancient wisdom can help us create modern peace and happiness. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Here's to living with intention, purpose, and